Messi. Messi. Oh my goodness. Balotelli. Aguero. That is extraordinary. What a headshot. What a hit.
Back of the net.
Hello, and welcome to the Not a Pundit podcast. My name is Killian Ginnity. I'm delighted to be joined, as ever, by Conor Glennon and Nathan Byrne, and I'm extra delighted to be joined this evening by Bill Gaine, the man behind Irish Football Blog, one of our social friends, but an absolute behemoth in the Irish football scene with some fantastic Substack articles. Always finger on the pulse of Irish football from national team down to the leagues. If you don't already follow them, do. Mainly on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it now.
You old man calling it Twitter, you old man.
Whatever way you find them, do. We'll also have the links in the podcast description below. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
Well, I'll tell you, Newcastle may have lost, which is not good for my blood pressure, but it seems Ruben Amorim's blood pressure is even worse because he seems to be smashing tellies in dressing rooms if the media are anything to go by. But how are you, Killian?
I am great. We got our first on radio call out today. I was delighted to join at Lunchtime Live earlier for some podcast reviewing, and Not a Pundit got our shout out, which is always nice. Bill, what is the crack?
Not too bad. Thanks for having me on. I've listened to a few podcasts before. And I'm not going to say I listen regularly, to be honest, but I listened to your one with Jonathan McKinstry. I think I listened to the one with Jerry Strain, and there was one more I can't think of, but I've listened to a few.
Possibly George Kearns, but we do try to go for the different ones where we can, from Cambodia to all the way to the Hamilton in Scotland. We do try to cover all bases.
We globetrot on all the niche clubs, topics, and coaches we can think of. So welcome to our illustrious group of niche people.
That's what it's all about, because I won't begrudge anyone starting, but some people, you see an awful lot of accounts and they're doing the same thing, and it just gets regurgitating. I follow 750 accounts on Twitter or X, and it's not because I don't follow people back or something. I try to really fine tune my timeline to get the maximum information from my time as possible. But yeah, fair play.
Well, you've always been good though, so thank you very much. But I don't know, Killian, where do you want to start this one? There's so much to touch on from an Irish footballer's perspective.
Well, I think there's only one place to start, and Nate, I think we'll throw this to you first. Colin Healy, I'm sure everybody's seen this story now, but just a very quick overview. Colin Healy, former Irish international, former Sunderland player, also former Cork manager and head of youth development and coach. He was the assistant manager for the Irish women's national team, and he claims that Mark Canham had told him, yeah, you'll be getting a new contract. There was no new contract, and he came out on social and made everybody aware of this and his unhappiness with that. So Nate, how I want to put it to you, considering our previous chats, the FAI cannot be as badly ran as their comms make them seem.
Well, it was their good friend Mark Canham that seems to be in the spotlight again. It's a PR nightmare. What was that about? Not only are you is it in the football realm, but you're also dealing with people's personal lives and jobs and stuff. The fact that the CEO didn't even know that he was let go was mind-boggling. So yeah, it's just a disaster altogether. You understand to a certain degree with how much position changes are going on in that organisation that, one thing or another could slip through the cracks, but this is huge. And I think, they need to move to rectify it, but it doesn't look like anything will happen.
Bill, we've touched on, as a podcast, we've touched on this before and basically kind of said that one of the major problems with the FAI, footballing aside, is that the comms always seem to like snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, or vice versa, or whatever way it's meant to be. Like, it just always, when you think something's going to go right, there's going to be some media mishandling, and this seems to me that it could have been avoided. What, have you been on the story much? Have you got to see much of it? What do you think?
Look, I'm not going to pretend like I'm in the know or anything. I only know what I've read. It's very it's very hard to know because like it's very easy to beat the bush to the FAI and speak of everything they do wrong because there's been plenty in the past that they've done wrong. But there's plenty they do right too. But I'd like to think that it wasn't malicious. It wasn't like a vindictive type of thing. Like Colin was going through his own personal problems at the time. I'd say it was just, for want of a better phrase, it was incompetence or oversight, which isn't too discommon, but at least it's not in a malicious sense, I hope. I can't see why it would be. Probably just a breakdown.
You'd really hope it isn't, because I don't know, the truth of this is obviously coming from Colin himself, though, that he turned down a job at Cove Ramblers, which is a great position that he could have had. So you do feel sorry for him, kind of almost falling between two stools.
Yeah, and I have no doubt that what Colin's saying is true or he believes it to be true. Like, I have no doubt that Cove were in for him. They were. I do know that. It was certainly a good opportunity for him. Maybe there was a breakdown in communications. The FAI won't get the blame for that. They probably should, but it can't be black and white. Like, there's something grey there.
Yeah, it's just like when the new women's team manager comes in, and it's a great coup to get her in from Aston Villa. And then the whole press conference is dominated by yet another kind of I don't want to say scandal. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but it's just another kind of
It's another what do they say, gate, manager gate this time around. It's another, there's always a gate
it's another gaffe. Like,
Yeah.
it just seems to be that we're not even making it to to an international window now before there's another FAI gaffe or something that makes you kind of go, oh, that was unnecessary. But it's not the only thing that the FAI is responsible for, and it's not the only news that we will be touching on this week, because obviously things are starting to get hot and heavy, and the Irish League is going to be coming back very, very soon. And it kind of begs the question, as we always do, and we touched on it before in our conversations with George Kearns and Alan Cawley, about development and developing young footballers for the betterment of the Irish league system, and also the national team ultimately. And Bill, you had a fantastic Substack on what you felt were some of the key points that we need to look at as a nation for these young footballers, but you took a lot more of a holistic approach than just kind of football, money, training facilities. Could you kind of give us even just a brief run through some of the things that you touched on?
Yeah, I suppose, look, I'm not a footballer myself. Like, to be honest, I didn't even reach like under 10 standard. I wouldn't get a game. So that's kind of, in part, that's type of my personal gripe with the academy structures or training nurturing talent, because we're trying, like, no one knows who's going to make it. The idea behind the academy structures should be to keep people in it for as long as possible, just develop the person thing, and then see what happens from that. Now, on the League of Ireland, I think the League of Ireland is best placed as a development league. If I had my way, I would be running a League of Ireland club as basically an under-23s team. The idea behind that would be getting as many first-team senior games as possible for them before you can move them on, because I think, realistically, and I don't know if this would be a popular opinion, but like, if you're playing past 24, 25, 26, or in your prime in the League of Ireland, you're not moving on, nor should you, and nor should a club be looking at you. While the League of Ireland is great for developing players, I think physically, getting the first team games, it leaves a lot to be desired for like basically on-course academy coaching, technically developing players. Like, I touched on Andy Moore in the Substack. He said that when he was a child, because of his size, he didn't get picked for under 13s teams and stuff, because the physically more developed people were going over there. So I think when Andy went over quite early, it was the best decision for Andy because he wasn't going to get the technical development that he would have gotten in Ireland, rightly or wrongly. So he had to move over to England. I think development isn't linear and different players require different things. So it's hard to have a branch all phrase, but it's just you have to take on a case by case basis. And as it is now, we're not going to touch the English leagues for their facilities, coaching contact hours as much as we want to try. We can try to improve it, but we're never going to compare really.
Yeah, I think it's a very fair point, and one of the things that stood out to me in your Substack article was the clip with Damien Duff, where he kind of, I think it was a couple of years back now, but he was talking about how he was getting slaughtered in the press for training his young lads kind of 5 days, 6 days a week, and he raises the point in that if they're only training twice a week and playing half the year, how is he meant to develop his teams? And I think we run into those issues as well,
Yeah, like what's the difference between innate talent and learned talent? Like innate talent will only take you so far. You have to have the contact hours, and I understand you have to treat kids like kids and stuff. But if you want a career in professional football, it's not just football. In every sport, they're taking it stringently, seriously, nutrition, everything from very early stage. So it's very hard to not argue with it. Like he comes across as extreme, and he's criticized as extreme at the time, but I think he's right, to be honest.
Do you think that, like, I know you were saying with, if you're, for most players, if you're hitting 25, 26, 27, you're realistically not going to be moving on from really the island of Ireland. You might get a move up north or south. Do you think that there needs to be more focus on being put on making the Irish League more of it, or the Irish leagues more of a destination, kind of going that if you only reach here, you're still going to have a good career. That is still really good. And do you think part of that kind of reshaping would be helped by like we've touched on the as a podcast, we've touched on this before, kind of like the leagues having better social media presences, so that like when these young lads are coming through, they have something kind of aspirational to look at online, because that's how things are going. Like the amount of young lads you see now that are sharing Messi or Ronaldo highlights, well, wouldn't it be great to see that for some of our own immensely talented players that are actually playing, and then off the back of that, them lads might go down and watch them and join the academy structure and actually end up having a good footballing career that will make the whole league better as a result.
Yeah, I think the social media has definitely improved through like yourselves, myself, and others. That's really helping make us put a spotlight on the league. Now we are coming to the problem fairly soon, if not already, in some places where we don't have the capacity to facilitate demand. Just circling back
Great
though.
problem to have.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, a couple of years back we would have been dying for that problem.
Circling back though, what I'd like to see the League of Ireland, and I mentioned it as a development league, what we see now is we see players moving on from the league, taking their chance in League 2, League 1. Ideally, I think those are the players that if we had an industry in the country, we had facilities, we'd be keeping to develop the on-site nature, so we could help develop our younger talent in Ireland for as long as possible, because they have the technical quality. Whereas your likes of Evan Ferguson, Sam Curtis, those players are always going to move on. Players will always seek pastures higher, and think otherwise is wrong. But what I'd like to increase, if you can increase try have a financial situation where more of your League 2, League 1 standard players are staying, then you're improving the league. And look, there's players of the League 1, League 2 standard who stay in Ireland, they have a good career, they earn good money, and that's so for them. They might play in Europe. That's not to begrudge them that. I wouldn't begrudge anyone that, nor would I begrudge anyone who goes, look, I'm going to take my chance abroad in League 1, League 2, because the money down there is serious too. It has to be done on a case by case basis, but yeah, I don't know. So,
You touched on, like, obviously the moving abroad and League One, and obviously money is always going to be a factor, but in general, do you think that the Irish footballing system has kind of taken advantage of Brexit enough? Because obviously players can't go over until they're 18 now, and those that are moving abroad can go within the EU. So do you think, I know I've kind of felt it, and I like we all talked about seeing the guys go over to Serie A, Serie B. Um, Great to see, but do you think that one that the league is doing enough to kind of harness the youngsters for that extra year or two that they might have? But
Probably.
also, do you think that that we're not making enough of the pathways where teams could be looking to us, or players could be looking to teams that they wouldn't have considered before? Like, should we be having better relationship with clubs over in Belgium or Poland and trying to get the like
Kind of sister clubs going and
yeah
feeder
like
clubs. Yeah.
the UK system is not the be all and end all of football.
Yeah, look, I don't think there's no solutions. There are only trade offs, and with Brexit, there comes there's challenges about players have to stay here for longer. We're keeping players longer, but it's about building opportunities from that and saying, can we get these players more contact hours? Can we develop them, or can we look at alternative markets? To be honest, and if I was an English club or I was running an English club, I'd do it too. The English the English still feel it as a low risk, high reward investment. Um, the Everton fans sing 60 grand, 60 grand about James Coleman, but like that's nothing for us as League of Ireland supporters or Irish football fans to be proud of. It's quite embarrassing that someone like of that standard went to for so cheaply, and it's not really improved. I don't like we never see 6 figure transfer fees in League of Ireland. Now it's happened in the Irish League there. There's a bid for someone called Kieran O'Ford for 100,000 or 120,000. I can't remember the last time a player transferred for that in League of
Like
Ireland.
that shouldn't be news. That should just be the given.
Do you think that's a case though of say you're I don't know you're let's Sligo, Shamrock Rovers, or Pats, and you get 60 grand offered to you? Do you think half of the ownership is going? Okay, 60 grand is really useful right now. If we hold on to him for another year, he could tear his ACL and we get nothing. Do you think it's panic out of sheer lack of investment in the clubs that they really need that low level of money in comparison to what they could get?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's by case basis. I wouldn't blame clubs for that either. Say if Sligo Rovers run a tight ship, voluntary run, like it's very hard to turn down money because not to mind about injuries, like a player could fall off. Anything can happen to a player, so it's very difficult for us not to take the offers at the time they come. I've seen Pats recently have knocked back bids from Mason Media, or he can't leave now at the moment anyway. Shamrock Rovers have turned down bids for players, Jack Byrne previously, but like they're more they're better placed to do so. So it's very hard for the likes of Sligo Rovers or even a Bohemians to be turning down bids for players when it's just not run. It's not run to the standard or the degree where they can afford to keep these players.
And it's one of those things. It's once a couple of those offers come in and get accepted, it just keeps rolling because unless someone holds out for that larger offer, it's always going to be those sub 6 figure deals.
Yeah, look, yeah, go on.
I was just gonna say because like you did mention Bose there. Daniel Lambert in the past has actually called for a minimum fee agreement across clubs. Now, again, I don't think it's necessarily feasible. But I do think there should be like a base minimum that like under 10,000, 50,000. You don't have to accept it, but if you want it, you can. But like we see it in La Liga and the Spanish structure that you have to have a minimum fee release clause that no matter what, that there is a get out clause for a player. We've seen it in the past. I think Benzema was at like 2 billion or 3 billion. Like,
Yeah.
things are never going to be activated. But like, do you think something like that could help clubs in terms of negotiating power? Kind of going, well, we don't have to say yeah to 60 grand. We know for them 100 grand's not that much more, but it'd mean a whole lot more to us.
Yeah, and the end runs commercially. Bohemians do a great job now. I like a lot what Dan does. I disagree with a lot of it, but I can't doubt that he speaks or he's speaking fairly factually there, and he does run a good ship of Bohemians. The problem with those sort of deals. And I think I can't remember who it was at the time, but some of the clubs wouldn't agree to it. I don't know, was it like Shamrock Rovers and like, and even if clubs agreed to it and we had a minimum thing, like there's an incentive to cheat. Like there will always be an incentive to cheat or to try,
Get a workaround.
yeah, work around, like because that's your edge. Then, like if I'm a club, I'm looking for where's my edge. If I can't compete with Shamrock Rovers with fees or getting players, then I'll be like, can I get these players out earlier to clubs?
Where's the grey area that you can maximise the kind of return on investment? Really,
Yeah, and you're appealing to clubs' better nature. And I don't know if it's there. Can we do it? Because like when I always say, like, I'm running the page, I like to see all Irish football teams do well in Europe, because the league is not in a financial place where we can be turning down money into Irish football. I think we can squander. But like, if we were at the level of the Premier League or even a Championship, we could then say, "Oh, I hate Bohemians. I'm a Cork City fan. I hope they get knocked out in the first round." But we're just not at that place yet. We
yeah. I
need a lot.
suppose if one team wins, we all win kind of mentality.
We need. I saw an idea proposed. I can't remember where it was. The Netherlands or Belgium, one of those countries, a few years ago, and one of the teams who won their European money, it was divided across the league. Now, I can never see that working in the League of Ireland, nor would I agree with it really, but there's ways around things.
It's kind of that
It's a
US
nice
model.
sentiment.
It's like the US model of jersey sales get shared out across the league equally.
Yeah, it's about taking the things that work across different leagues and applying them to League of Ireland, because there's plenty of room for growth in the League of Ireland. Let's be real here.
I personally, just touching on it, I think we all know Brexit was such a big thing for the League of Ireland and how it affects youth and money coming into the league. But we all know clubs or businesses, probably more than we'd love to admit it, is it's had such a huge effect when you look at it in terms of when we can get our players out to other leagues, and I think that affects the price, because supply and demand is huge in terms of if we're not selling players at, say, 15, 16, or whenever, they're going to be looking at other leagues, and that's just the fact of it. And then when it comes to when they're 18 and stuff, is they haven't had that time in the Premier League in terms of, like, in the academies and getting that time, so they become less, what's the word, like they're not as important to these teams, I don't think so. I think Brexit's had a huge impact, and more than we probably talk about sometimes.
Yeah, look, and I meant to say it earlier, we love to beat the bush about, though, and criticise players who go over to England, saying, "Oh, I'd rather they go to Belgium or the Netherlands or Germany." But like, there's a lot of very good clubs in England. The facilities are second to none. There's a lot going for the English system. Now, I'm not saying that's right for everyone, because it's not. It has to go by case basis. But I've seen players go over to Italy now, and Italy are notoriously bad for bringing through young players. They don't have the facilities to the level that England has. I know if a player is linked with Italy tomorrow, the average fan will be like, "Oh yeah, it's great. It's not England." It's just not exactly the case. It's not that black and white. It's a case by case basis, and I think we the English system isn't perfect, and I'd like to see other players. Certainly, a certain profile of player look past that, but it's like, it is a good system. Like, it's not
It's hard. It's hard to look down on the money, I suppose. If you're a player who's very aware of your level and knows you're not going to be a 1%er, it's hard to turn down, a very decent contract in the UK.
Yeah, go earn your money in League One, League Two, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, very few players, even with Ireland, that is at the standard is now. Very few players will make the international team. It's the 1% or 1%. So if someone wants to earn more money in League Two England than playing Eredivisie and in the Netherlands, like, fair play to them. Like, I can't talk down their life choices, to be honest.
It's great when you see players like Troy Parrott, take the leap across and really succeed. And he seems to have found some old form within him, and you just hope that reignites it for other players.
Yeah, and I think it was the right move for Troy, but again, he had his grounding in the English system. He moved over to England very early. He was in the Tottenham Academy for years. Maybe he could have moved to the Eredivisie quicker, but the English system definitely had a place in his development. Like,
For sure.
I think that's one of the things with UK football in general is they do tend to blood players earlier and are a lot more willing to do that. Like we've seen Liam Kerrigan and James Abankwa not get the game time over in Serie A. So like I do appreciate that, but it is always just even just the idea of seeing players like not somewhere different. It's always good, but one of the things that is going to be coming into Irish football relatively soon, and there is the calls out for applications, is a third division. It's been long mooted about whether it should be included, a little bit more of a pyramid rather than the two league structure, and there will be one coming. I believe it's north and south divided. For the English fanatics, it's like the Vanarama National League will be split like that. Do you think, and lads, if you want to come in on this as well, do you think that this could potentially be like flooding the market now? That there's going to be a lot of clubs looking for a relatively small audience for them to be coming and seeing, and whatever limited finances are going into the leagues, there's now going to be more looking for it. I believe it's going to be relatively amateur and stuff, and I live in Cavan, so any teams close to me I'll be happy with rather than having to go an hour and a half plus to go. But it is a worry that it's going to just water down an already very limited stew.
Yeah, I'd be interested to get Bill's opinion on this, because for me, I think financially the league is already incredibly stretched, and we're just it's going to be glorified Sunday league players. And I hate to say that, I love Sunday league football, but I think there's going to be a lot of Joe Blogsers trying to make their way in the league, and I do think I'd love to see it, to obviously see more football, more players could get found, diamonds in the rough and that. But I don't know about you, Bill. I think it's a bridge too far for the system we have.
yeah, I think I take a different opinion to you. I suppose I've been a supporter of either an All Ireland League or an expanded third tier for some time. It's something I build an awful lot of my content around. What I see with the third tier is a lot of it will be no, it is basically entirely amateur. What it provides is a joined up system where you can. The first division isn't a dead rubber now, so you don't have your life in Langford and Kerry. There's jeopardy, which adds to the intrigue of the matches. I suppose I can see it like from the point of finance and stuff. It's regionalised, so I don't think it'll cost much more. As well, there are a lot of teams, and this is the problem in Irish football. There's a lot of teams, allegedly or knowingly, that are known in, we'll say, the likes of the Leinster Senior League. I don't know, Munster Senior League, maybe not, but Leinster Senior League definitely, that are paying players more to play amateur football than players are getting in the first division in League of Ireland.
Wow.
That's insane.
I'm not going to lie, that's the first I've heard really of that. I knew there was always murmurs, but I didn't know if there was any truth to it.
I believe there is, and I can't prove anything, but I'm pretty sure there is, and that is the problem. Like what I feel what third tier does, it allows for a joined up system, it adds for jeopardy, it allows for promotion. So you have, say, you've 12 more teams in the country that you can be managed at the top level that can work their way up through the system if they use their money correctly. And what I'm most likely to do is, I think it would like if you can increase the talent base, or increase the floor of talent in the country, so your amateur football rises standard that has subsequent knock-on effects to the first division quality will rise, the Premier Division quality will rise, our national team quality will rise. So I think it's about creating and joining the system. I know there's finance problems, and now you'd have to have the lines of, if a team's in the first division and they get relegated to the third division, that constitutes a change of, you might be going from semi-professional to amateur, but again, if you're running a ship that's getting relegated from the first division, then you should be cutting your card. You should be cutting your card accordingly. I think people need to be smarter about decision making. And yeah, look, I'm okay. I'm sure there'll be teething issues, but I think it's necessary. If you look at Northern Ireland, for example, there's 3, 4, 5 tiers promotion relegation. And I've always said if they have it up north, and I know understand the geography is much tighter, I can't see why we don't have anything.
No, that's a fair point.
And like one of the things I do love about the Northern League is it Loch Gall. They're like from a village of like 257 people or something, and they're getting into the top two leagues, and who knows, one day they might get into Europe.
Ireland's Villarreal.
Yeah, it's just like everyone loves an underdog story, and that is one.
Yes, well, leveraging what you can do, like again, like all won't be able to compete against the likes of Linfield with the finances. So it's about looking how can they operate differently and achieve the best they can to their abilities. But yeah, I'm all a fan of that.
Do you think? Because I'm not, I won't claim to be knowledgeable on the kind of the third tier application, beyond sending it in and being like, not a pundit FC guys, sending it into our group chat. Do you think that there is potential that they could get flooded by, be it either like B teams or youth teams from some of the bigger ones that like we've seen it with Shamrock Rovers B before? Do you think that kind of stuff is going to be on the cards again?
Yeah, I'm glad it came up because it's something I do feel strongly about. I believe that like we don't know until teams are announced, but I don't believe they'd have looked for. I say they've done the cheating. They've done. I'd have trust in FAI to have done their due diligence beforehand, sounded out a few clubs, advised them, or have got an idea that there's few clubs coming. Because I've know anecdotally of 2 or 3 clubs that will be interested. The argument about being B teams and stuff, I understand it to a degree. But I think the Irish are a bit obsessed again with the English system in the sense that England there's no B teams. In an awful lot of European leagues, the likes of La Liga, you've Barcelona B, you've Real Madrid, Castilla, you've Ajax, Young or something it's called. So look, beggars can't be choosers. We could all draw up a perfect map and say, I like 32 teams, like a bit like the GA. No, I'm not a big fan of GA, but like have a team.
Don't get Killian started in the GA. We could be here for 3 hours.
I'm not too a fan of the GA, but like we could all draw up a perfect map and say I'd like a team in Cavan, I'd like a team in who doesn't have one, Roscommon, like or Tipperary would say Tipperary would be another good choice. But I think beggars can't be choosers, and if a team shows the ambition to want to go into the third tier, I say the best of luck to them because I much rather see them have the ambition to go into the third tier than paying players at amateur level because that's just absurd.
That's just counterintuitive to the growth of the game, really.
Yeah, look, and just on the Shamrock Rovers B point, if you look at the B team that Shamrock Rovers had when they were last in the first division, it was a serious team. I think you had Sam Curtis, Sinclair Armstrong, and Maku maybe, but it's like it wasn't a bad team. Like they have the players to do it, so I wouldn't begrudge 1 or 2 B teams. Like as long as it's not 10, but if you have 1 or 2, I'm perfectly fine with it, to be honest.
Nate, it's one of the things that even if they are with B teams, because they're going to obviously have the better kind of academy structures, we might see a few kind of a little bit more linked from the regional teams, that like we might get our own Jamie Vardy-esque story where the lads that had been missed at 16, 17, 18, they hit a bit of form when they're 21, 22 and they have a load of Red Bulls and they're working in a factory and they can just maybe get a couple of seasons at the top.
Yeah, that's what it's about. Like keeping players playing football for as long as possible at as high of a level as possible. Now, I'm someone who can never make any fair level, but
I think we're all in that camp, mate. You're not alone.
maybe, like I think that's the thing. We need to be fostering people's strengths and stuff, and working towards things. I know someone. He covers United. He's called Ronaldo Brown, and he was in the Liverpool academy for a bit, and he wasn't. He said that he wasn't the best of players, but what he had was blinding pace, and apparently what the coach had said to him at the time was, "We can teach the rest."
Shout out
So
Kyle Walker.
Like, I think it's about fostering our strengths. Like, every player will have their strengths and their abilities, and it's very rare that someone's weaknesses will become their strengths. So, it's about harnessing people's abilities for as long as we can. And maybe if people can't make it in League of Ireland level, can they be used elsewhere? Can they be used in social media? Can they be used in academy football? Can they be brought? Can they become coaches earlier? Like, it's people have multi talent. The people have lots of talents, and it goes beyond like just ability to kick a ball. To be honest.
It's about unearthing it, and yeah, I think you raise a good point there in terms of just because they may not be able to get the 1% of playing, they could be a 1% coach. Like, there's a lot of very very top level good top level coaches out there that haven't been much use with kicking a ball.
Yeah, and like I'm sure it certainly has its place, and I wouldn't say like if you play football at a top level, of course you're gonna have that perspective and that be able to work off that. But like it's not to be all and end all. There are other things. There are other paths to improving things. But yeah, circling back, basically, if we're going to have a third tier, it's about keeping as many people playing football as high a level as possible for as long as possible, and who knows what happens after that.
would be great to see the third tier also be included, even if it's only a handful of matches or whatever, on the likes of League of Ireland TV, so that the teams that are playing can get that extra little bit of coverage, and be it like the top league sends one guy once a week just to a random team and gets a little bit of coverage.
That's actually kind of nice. Yeah, like I mean, it's not. I don't want to trivialize it by saying kind of a good news story kind of thing, but I think what is nice about it is, let's face it, for if a smaller team, if we're going to call them that, get that opportunity, there's not going to be that immediate buy-in even locally. There will be to the people that are already involved in the club, but I think if you're putting it on, even if it's on like League of Ireland socials, or if they send a camera guy down the odd time, I think it'll only help build not only locally that team, but then increase the interest of the other third tier teams in their locality.
Yeah, go on.
I'll be honest. The more I think about this third league, is I think it sort of has to have second teams in it. Otherwise, I don't understand how the ecosystem is going to work in terms of players going up and where they get seen. I think it'd be good to have the second teams in it. Like if the League of Ireland goes out to say the Premier Division teams and go, listen lads, if you want a second team, you can have it. Just prove you can fund it. Basically, I think that makes more sense, and then fill out the rest of it with other clubs. Because I don't see how players get spotted in that league, in terms of, I don't know if we have the infrastructure to take players up two leagues, if that makes sense. And I think if they're in, say, a Shamrock Rovers B team, I think it makes it a lot more viable to take them up the system, if that makes sense.
I think that ties into what Killian was saying as well, because I think that is realistically the only way that those games are going to be shown on TV, is if a B team is playing a minnow. It's that kind of FA Cup mentality of there's something, there's David Goliath of sorts. Obviously, it's not at the level of the FA Cup, but I think that's what brings the eyeballs.
Well, part of that is also down just to the bigger teams by default, they're going to actually have some form of, even if it's minimal, broadcasting equipment. Like I don't think if Virginia FC were going to start in the league, they're going to have some, like, even if it's only like a what they called, Playo or whatever it is, or VO, the streaming. Like, they're £1,200 and £1,200 for a team.
They're actually quite good as well. A mate of mine who coached non-league in the UK. They the club invested in that, even just for watch back of games for internally, and the quality of that stuff's actually very good.
Yeah, like the tech is becoming a lot more accessible. It's just kind of having that kind of having somebody there to run it, basically.
Yeah.
Like,
we'll send you around the country, Kit.
I'll happily do it. We'll do not a pundit Irish football blog tour of Ireland. We'll go to all the third division teams and give them a day out. Will we, Bill?
Definitely in the future we'll start something. But
it's in the post.
I think it just comes down to just joined up thinking. Like it has to be joined up. There has to be a plan in place. The FAI have look people have to beat the FAI. I do believe they're well intentioned a lot of the time, and like there are stories to be told in the amateur football. Like I don't know if you're aware of the former Ireland Collins rugby player Nai Adekun. He's from
No,
Nigeria. Yeah, like he was playing with Merview United B up until recently. After he represented he played like GA when he was younger and played for Shelburne under 20s, but he's playing with Merview United, their B team up until recently. So like there are athletes that there are stories to be told in the amateur league too. It's just about finding them.
Do you think that, not to be kind of harping back to the old days, because obviously they didn't end particularly well, but like when you mentioned that, do you think that there is a place for, and this doesn't necessarily have to be for the third division, but I think even potentially the first. Do you think that there could be a place for trying to get some, be it a former international or a former Premier League player, and maybe take a slightly MLS approach of kind of going, right, we have, let's say Shane Long has agreed to come and do a season for us. We can afford X amount as a league. Would you be willing to do to front X amount per week? Because it's one of the things that in the MLS that, like, if you can prove that it's going to be a tangible uh, benefit to the league as a whole, so the likes of a Messi or a David Beckham, that you could actually get the league to kind of help invest in to get the transfer over the line. Do you think there is kind of a place for that? Because like we saw back in the day where George Best had a stint down in, was it Cork Celtic, and I think Bobby Moore, I think, maybe had a game in Ireland. I think Gordon Banks was in St.
my
Pat's.
only thing with this, my only thing with this, and I love, it's amazing to get to see that caliber of manager or player or whatever it is. But I
They were
think
all players.
I think, well, did Big Sam manage in Ireland? I think he did at
He
one
did.
point.
He started off as a player manager in Limerick.
But my only thing with all of that is, are you trending into mercenary territory there? Are you making it? Are you taking away opportunities from the money you're investing in those players, from facilities, from bringing in even just more players to the league that are going to stay longer and actually buy in?
Yeah, look, I think it comes down to finances, and I don't believe we have the finances to do so in that sense at the moment. What I would be against, and this is one of my advocates for the third tier, would be it gives there's say 20, if you include the women's tier, there's 20, 30 management jobs in the country, senior teams, that's it. Whereas if you added the third tier adds another 10, 15 teams to the mix, depending, which will allow, like it just allows more managers to start cut their cord. So what you could have is the likes of say Roy Keane going to a Ringmahon or a Co of Ramblers. One of his former Rockmount will say you could have players going to their grassroots clubs. These are well off individuals anyway, and they could take on the project themselves. Now an awful lot of them, there wouldn't be it wouldn't be a financial thing for them to do so. So they'd have to want to do it more so out of just personal improvement or improving their Irish football rather than getting any financial returns from it, because you're not getting any financial returns from it realistically.
I think I don't know if you'd get the caliber of a Roy Keane, but there's definitely, I think, players who would have had, spent time in be it the UK or top flight in Ireland, kind of going back to their local team, that I think would definitely again bring more eyes, more attention, and I suppose create a management pathway as well. Like that's the one thing that I was kind of thinking there when you were saying about an additional 10, 15 jobs. Like, who says one of them doesn't go on to be a, gigantic manager in the future and of kind of huge caliber?
Yeah, like because if you look abroad, we have I'm gonna say hundreds of Irish players across different leagues in England, and but if I ask, well, I could probably just about do it now. But if you ask people to name Irish coaches, I'd be interested to see how many people can actually name.
We were only saying this recently on the pod. We were kind of struggling enough to get more than a handful.
Only
Yeah,
for I'm a football manager fiend. I would struggle.
And yours goes so your level of niche coaches like that. If like they're not mainstream, you know.
Like it's yeah, it's I think this is where, Bill, like as you said, the joined up thinking would be great. That like if it was kind of incentivized within the when you're getting your badges with the FAI to work within or with the third division clubs, especially in the first kind of formative years of it, when clubs and the league and nobody's sure financially how it's going to work potentially. That it's kind of like, okay, well, we have all these guys, and if you're looking for work placement, well, we'll incentivize that you go here. We're not going to stop you going elsewhere, but here's a bunch of clubs that you'll get really good experience with. It would just make sense, I think.
You're bringing me around to the idea of it. When we came onto the pod today, I had a feeling that this third division would be a major talking point, and I've been quite a large proponent of all the reasons why it doesn't work. But I think if you look at it as a football fan, why not try it? You know.
100%. We are coming towards the end of the podcast now. But Bill, it's a question I put to Alan Cawley before because I'm a great proponent of it. Nate and Connor less so. They're kind of less enthused about it as I would be. The granny rule. Heimer Helgrimson, when he was at Jamaica, brought through many second, third generation players and had relative success with them. I don't think he was there long enough to get the real successes of it. There's a whole batch of second or third generations players there that I'm not sure how much the approach has gone out to them or how convincingly they've kind of done it or not, as the case may be. I'm a Sunderland fan. I want to see Dennis Sirkin in a.
If I hear that man's name one more bloody time,
what do you make of for lack of a kinder word, of the imported players that didn't come through the Irish leagues? They don't necessarily have the affinity of the Irish structure, but could come in and do a really good job for us.
yeah. Like I suppose it's kind of one of my gimmicks on our football blog that I kind of pick up the diaspora for, to an extent where I make posts about Declan Rice, Jack Grealish, Michael Keane.
Much to your followers' chagrin.
yeah.
It's a bit of crack, and again, if people like, it annoys all the right people. If they're not, if that annoys them and they want them to follow because of that, then I don't want them following in the first place. Like I rather post what I want to post than pander for people for likes and clout, which certain people and you see across social media. But yeah, look, as someone who's born in Ireland, raised in Ireland, I've never left Ireland for much considerable life, but my parents are Irish. The diaspora question is very difficult. Like I understand people were burned with the likes of Jack Grealish, Declan Rice. I'd more so blame. Actually, I don't really blame either of them, to be honest. I blame Martin O'Neill for not copying him. But like, I'll never know what it's like to be dual nationality like those, and I think it's wrong. Like, there's an insecure kind of feeling going into the Irish cycle at the moment where we don't like these players because they switch, but like it's happened since the dawn of time and will continue to do so when you see the amount of people with African heritage now. We've Roberto Lopez playing for Cape Verde, Will Handermack played for Dr. Congo there recently, and even Michael Keane played for Ireland and England before he switched. Andy Donegan, there's so many of them, and people don't know about them because they don't care. They don't see them as lost star. And Patrick Bamford, it's only because Declan Rice and Jack Grealish would have been one of our best players that people are so upset about it now. When it comes to, I think the Declan Rice situation did kind of burn ties with people and it did upset a few people. So there are people, I imagine, in the background who are a bit war in the future now. But like, if you want to represent Ireland, if you have the heritage to do so, well, you can read the rules or not, but there are very simple rules in place. If you want to represent Ireland, you have to be born in Ireland or have a parent or grandparent. Simple as.
Yeah, we're not. We haven't gone as far as rugby, I suppose, where you can be 4 or 5 years in the country and play for the national team because it's like.
And no one says a thing about it. No one says a thing about it because of rugby, but like.
The only time I ever see from that this kind of kick up on that in rugby is if they're from the UK. I think Ireland have a lot of players that have come in from Australia, New Zealand, some Pacific Island heritage, South African heritage. But then you get someone like a Billy Burns who's a kind of UK born player. Then it all becomes a problem, and I think there's a bit of that in the granny rule piece. I think if players aren't English, we're a bit more open to it. And I'm not saying that as us as a pod. I just mean as a kind of, I suppose, general Irish feeling to it. But I think me and Killian kind of don't see eye to eye on it. Is I'm fine with any player who wants to play for Ireland if they want to play for Ireland, as opposed to, well, I couldn't get in the England team, or I couldn't get in the Spain team, or whatever.
Yeah, well, I suppose we might touch on it a bit. People I like to see, because I kind of just completely ignored your question there a second ago about players coming in. But like it's not black and white. An awful lot of the Irish team right now play for England at under-age level, and they went down to represent Ireland with distinction. Callum Robinson was captain at the under-20 levels. Kieran Clark captain Ireland, or captain England at under-20 level or under-21 level. Joe Hodge represented England at one point in his career. Well, he switched from Ireland, then England. He played for England once or twice, I think. Joe Hodge turned down England to represent Ireland when he was a kid, so he wants to play for Ireland. It's no situation is black and white, I suppose. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I'm bring them all in, to be honest. If I have scouting missions across the world, just anyone with Irish blood, I bring them in.
Well, this is Killian's point. Killian wants to I don't know if you said it was a real job or a job you wanted, Killian, but it was kind of like head of the granny rule, basically.
Yeah, I would love it. Like, I think genuinely there is merit to it. Anytime I'm playing Football Manager and I'm managing Ireland, I get a scout, and that's all his job is: go and find them players, because sometimes the players aren't that aware of it themselves. We've seen times where we all assumed that there was a player that could have been eligible. I think Callum O'Hare.
No.
People thought he was eligible, but it was a great grandparent, so it was just one out. Which, let's have a guy doing that job. Like,
Well, that man better not be me, because I thought Liam Delap was Irish for far longer than I should have, and he is not, and I can confirm.
and his great granny's only from over the road, so she is over in Minority. No, but like, I do think like we could, especially when, like, if we're gonna talk about it in kind of nearly a business sense, we could do with a left back. Dennis Sirkin fits that. Like, I think we can't be, and I think Alan Cawley said it as well. Beggars can't be choosers. Like, if the player is good enough and will get into the team, well, shouldn't we just get a good team?
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody was complaining about Alex Bruce going to Northern Ireland after he had 3 caps with us. This is kind of, with Declan Rice, this is the kind of the risk you take with these kind of players, and ultimately Ireland has been treated very, very well by this rule long term.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's not either or. We can have both. We can develop our product and our domestic product by true investment, and continue to search for the diaspora, because, like, I put up a poll when the page was a bit smaller, December 20, Christmas Eve in 2022. I said, would you rather, this is on the back of Morocco's success at the World Cup, I said, would you rather have an all-Irish born team and never make a tournament again, or do a Morocco and call up every eligible player and possibly make a semi-final? Now, I got dogs abuse from that in that comment section. People claiming that I was saying that you can't be born, if you're not born in Ireland, you're not racist. Or no, if you're not born in Ireland, well, the comment is, there are Irish people that are born outside of Ireland, lads. And like,
they're just missing the whole point of it.
I was being flippant, and I know the person was being completely disingenuous, because if he'd followed any sort of our content, I'm constantly, to the annoyance of absolutely everyone on the internet, like, I'm just pattering the league or the diaspora statement. Like,
What was the result of that poll?
So there wasn't that many votes. Well, there was a few. So 951 votes. 81.9% of people said do a Morocco, and 18% of people said all Irish.
Killian, you got some pals out there.
Well, see, this the other thing, and it kind of brings up another element to kind of my granny rule scout idea, and it's one of the things that Morocco did with Munir, the former Barcelona
Yeah.
wonder kid. They got him to be eligible, and chased FIFA down for, I think it was nigh on 4 years, because the rules at one stage said he could swap, and then this changed it slightly, which meant he couldn't, and then he could, but only one time. Like, it was quite complicated. But they fought the fight for the player, and isn't that a great way of getting somebody to be loyal to you? Just like to put in the work for them.
I think that poll kind of sums up pretty much our entire chat this evening and where Irish football is. I think we just need to experiment and try and bring in as much good resources as we can get our hands on.
Yeah,
Even when the commenters don't understand what you're asking them.
if we had the finances to do so, I'd be having granular camps. Like, my idea, actually, I put up a post before, and it was like having a development. I think it was based. I think I linked one of your articles in the post as well. It was about having a development team League Brand.
Yeah.
I think we should have a development team in the English system. I kind of do it myself when I play Football Manager. I did by Irish players. I did it with MK Dons actually, but like I just throw all Irish eligible players into like and use it as a basic training base for the team, because I think that would be the bridge between the League Brand and then. But you need a very wealthy person to do that.
Well, they did it for a year in the Philippines. They had the ASKELS development team, the ADT, and it was basically that bridge between, well, either the teams can't afford to have these players, but we can't afford to not have them playing. So stay within the system, learn under our national team coaches, and get league experience.
See, the problem with that is, you like Bill said, you need big money for that. And if you're spending big money on Irish football, you want the national team to succeed, it's going to come second fiddle all times. You know, it'd take a real football purist with bags of cash.
Yeah,
unless as a league you make an agreement, like kind of like we mentioned earlier with the European money, that maybe 10% goes aside for something like that.
Yeah, we can dream.
We can dream. Bill, it's been an absolute and utter pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell everybody where to find you?
For those fools who aren't already following you.
Yeah.
yeah. And I'll just echo your statement. I would love Dennis Cirkin to play for Ireland.
Oh God, enough of that. I'm joking. I think he'd be unbelievable. I just like poking fun at Killian for it.
To be fair, just one more thing. I have my fears that he'd rather play for Latvia than Ireland. But anyway. Yeah.
Where can they find you?
Forget that now. So Irish Football Blog on Twitter or X. In the link to our post, and that you'll have our other socials and partners. Republic Brand Player Tracker, the Pelicast, my own podcast, which I need to get going again soon. Might have you on, we'll see.
Anytime.
But yeah, just the main account really is Irish Football Blog on Twitter at Blog Irish, and you'll find your way everywhere else from that account.
Super stuff. Thanks a million, Bill.
Don't forget to follow there and to turn on post notifications, because every post is worth it. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me, and we'll chat again next week.
Bye-bye.
Messi. Oh my goodness! Balotelli.